Good evening, everybody. It's the 18th of December, 2025. What is it? Thursday or something, I guess. And yeah, it's a little bit late. Of course, I had a lot of things to do today. But I have to thank somebody out there. Somebody posted my video somewhere, so I got a lot of views and some new subscribers and whatnot. So whoever did that, thanks. I appreciate it very much. So thank you. And yes, to get into the news, I mostly want to talk a lot about some more about this, what's going on in Venezuela. One of the subscribers, I think probably it was a new subscriber, and apparently he might be from Venezuela, or at least he's a Spanish-speaking individual, I believe, and he gave some good information on what is really going on down there and why Trump made that statement about getting the United States' oil that just happens to find itself underneath the soil of Venezuela. By the way, he wants the soil of Venezuela too, and he wants assets or whatever, but there is some truth to it. I guess it's, and I was saying, I think in the last video, mostly some information, or at least I was going to put it out maybe in this video about Chevron being involved, and it's not really Chevron, apparently. It's and the person was mentioning that most of this came from Exxon, like Hugo Chavez back in those old days. He had, before apparently somebody had poisoned him, and I was close to him. He drove by in a car when I was in, as you all know, I lived in the Caribbean, but that's as close as I've ever come. And seen, like his airplane, he gave an airplane to the leader of the country that I was living in. So it says, from the president of Venezuela or whatever. But anyway, apparently how this worked out is Hugo Chavez made some sort of a new decree as far as regarding the oil that's Venezuela's oil. And I think it's somehow they have to be registered and maybe work through Venezuela's oil company, their nationalized oil company. And other companies refused except for Chevron. So Chevron stayed on, and Exxon, of course, refused. And obviously they didn't buy the land of Venezuela. You can't buy it. It's even a fallacy when you think that you own the land that you actually bought and you live on. You don't really own that. Technically speaking, the government doesn't own it, but it's more like the government owns it. They can come and confiscate it from you. But governments is not one person, and of course, one government comes after another. And I don't know. It's such a big deal about land. Like in America, they have the eminent domain, and they can come and take your land whenever they feel it benefits the country. It's a big mess. So you're actually only a custodian of land even when you buy it. You're maybe a little bit better off, like having an apartment. I'm living in an apartment here, and at least over here, it's like that now. And things I didn't know before you come in here, you don't have to pay that much for an apartment when you own the apartment in, say, for example, Belarus. But when you own one, for example, in Germany and a lot of other places, you pay as much as you do if you were renting an apartment. So I don't know what, I saw that. We were thinking about buying an apartment in Germany, and we found out, why would I want to buy it? Then if you want to move, you got to sell it. Good luck on that one, a lot of time. I can tell you stories. But anyway, to get back to this thing about Venezuela, it's Donald Trump, maybe he's misinformed, or maybe he just misspoke or something, acting like that is American oil, and maybe somebody convinced him that way so that he'd be more of a bulldog and try to go after Venezuela. I don't know. You never know what's in Donald Trump's head. Nobody really knows, not even his son. His son said he's unpredictable. And the leader of this country at one time, which is a very good quote, he said that Donald Trump says one thing in the morning and he says something completely opposite in the afternoon. So nobody really knows what's in Donald Trump's head. Anybody who thinks they do, they're going to be disappointed maybe 4 hours later. I don't know. But yeah, mostly I'll get a little bit back and touch on that a little bit more about what's going on in the Caribbean. But a lot of what I want to talk about is what's going on over here with Ukraine and Russia and even in Belarus, they're playing a part in this now. And I think they're going to play an even bigger part. It looks like Donald Trump is developing a large amount of trust with Lukashenko. And apparently they do get on together pretty well. And I was saying that there are a lot of similarities in personality, but Lukashenko's not like, Donald Trump is a little bit unpredictable and a kind of irrational at times. But I guess you would say they're both like strongman type leaders. And of course, so is Vladimir Putin. And I don't know. I guess you would describe it as being a little bit authoritative here in Minsk, Belarus, or the country. But it's not like people give you this impression of Stalin, Joseph Stalin. And a lot of time that's actually a misconception anyway. A lot of bad information. Oh, by the way, beer time, right? Great Belarusian beer. Yes, but anyway, these sanctions, lately, the European Union, they came up, I was thinking it's like the 22nd round of sanctions, but apparently somebody was saying it's the 20th round. I mean, hey, if it worked the first time and the second and the third, then, just go ahead and try it the 20th time. Who was it? Somebody saying that's the definition of insanity. Keep trying the same thing over and over again and thinking it's going to work the next time. I don't know. Nobody knows what's in the head of the European Union. I don't think it's even worse than Donald Trump. Nobody can understand Donald Trump. In fact, there was a subscriber that wrote about Donald Trump, and it might be true that when Donald Trump puts out this stuff that seems irrational, that it's not really directed at the regular people at large, but I guess it might be directed at a lot of these elites, maybe Ursula von der Leyen and Macron and Starmer and Merz and all of those types of people, maybe even elites in the United States. But I was also thinking Donald Trump, he sends out different signals all the time. I don't know what is the genuine Trump or not. Does he have compassion for blue collar workers? Is he out for the big elites, to get money into their pockets? I guess the only thing you can do is maybe think of Jesus a little bit and say, well, what would Jesus say? He would say, know them by their fruits. Don't go by Donald Trump's words. What is he doing? What is his actions? So, and it's going to remain to be seen what he's going to do with Venezuela. And a lot of people are saying if he does any kind of attack, it's actually going to hurt the United States. Very much like the stupid things that the EU does, but I don't know. I don't consider Donald Trump to be as stupid as those people are. So, not that Donald Trump is stupid at all. So I don't want to go with that. So this packet of sanctions. Now the United States it's not even really a secret. They are getting ready to open up more sanctions on Russia. That's another signal. Is that serious, or is this kind of a thing just to make it look good and look like, to appease the European Union? Or are these going to be biting sanctions? You saw these sanctions, Donald Trump. Was he threatening, or did he actually enact these? He said that he's going to penalize or any country that does any business whatsoever with Russia, even buying bicycles. Matter of fact, I think there was a sanction thing. That was, I think, a European Union. One of them was bicycles and toilets and things, not to buy toilets from Russia and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. Yeah, that's going to really hurt. It's probably going to hurt them more. I hope they got some good buckets over there in the European Union. So, yeah, but anyway, this new one is going to be, especially from the United States, that might hurt a little bit because they have a bigger ability to enforce these sanctions. And apparently a lot of this is going to be against this shadow fleet that everybody's accusing Russia of having, and apparently they do. Because if you think back a little bit, and I guess that was some months ago now, what is a shadow fleet as compared to a fleet that isn't a shadow fleet? And apparently the definition is that a fleet that is not a shadow fleet, this is a very strange definition. I mean, if you don't know what's going on, those that are not a shadow fleet are registered or insured by banks in London. I'm not sure if I can remember if it was Barclays or some by British, because there is one bank there that grants most of all the insurances to these tankers on the high seas. And that was one of the sanctions. It might have been the first sanction of the European Union, along with the UK, is to not insure Russian or anybody getting Russian oil. So Russia, did one better, and they started their own insurance company, and the UK lost money and Russia gained money from that. I guess that was a really good move, wasn't it? And but apparently Donald Trump is going to come up with his, and he's going to probably go with the same thing. And but they can enforce it probably a little bit better. But I don't think they're going to be able to enforce it that much. What are you going to do? Are you going to shoot a ship that has Russian insurance? Instead of Barclays insurance. I mean, what are you going to do? So I don't know if that's going to bring anything about. That's only one part of the sanctions, and the rest of it hasn't been really announced yet. What other sanctions the United States is going to place on Russia? Yeah, but anyway, at least now what a shadow fleet is. They're not insured in the UK. So yes, and you see that the objective, even of the United States to a large extent, and if you watch Brian Berletic's show, the new Atlas, very famous, and he's a very good military analyst, he would tell you that it is also the objective of the United States, contrary to what signals Donald Trump is like showing us right now, at least in the news and all the crybaby corporate news saying, "Oh, Donald Trump is a puppet of Vladimir Putin." But it was also Donald Trump's vision, and possibly maybe still is, if he can possibly find a way, is to bankrupt Russia, starve Russia, bankrupt Russia, enact a strategic defeat, bring Russia to its knees, obviously. But that was Joe Biden, he was enacting it. Donald Trump, I believe, was noticing that doesn't really work too well, so I think he's shying away from that, and instead he's going for plan B, and that would be trying to bring a peace deal. And Brian Berletic, I remember, he said the whole purpose of bringing peace about is to put this conflict on hold and to have it renewed at some point in the future. Again, start up this war. And that's why the United States has often been receptive. It's not like they're dictating anything, whatever happens in this peace, which may not come about between Ukraine and Russia. And Ukraine keeps saying, no, I think they started out, no, the United States was saying that Ukraine would be allowed to have a military of 600,000, which is, that would be by far and away the largest military in all of Western Europe. And it would be bigger than any two of the biggest militaries combined, that 600,000. But the European Union, as you know, stuck their nose in, and they said, no, 800,000. So, and I believe that's what they believe Ukraine maintains currently is 800,000. So in other words, there would not be any reduction. And as you all know, that one of the big goals of the Russians' special military operation is that Ukraine becomes demilitarized, and another is denazified, which you can't denazify. I mean, somebody can be denazified and 5 minutes later say, well, okay, I like the Nazi the Nazi ideology, so they're not denazified anymore. I don't really understand how Russia intends on doing that. I mean, even right now, a lot of things, what's going on is they're trying to hide all the Nazi symbols and the swastikas and things in Ukraine. And sometimes you have a lot of photos of important people and all that, and you see something hanging on their wall, with the Nazi swastika on there, things like that. And as you all know, Ukraine has their own version of the Nazi swastikas anyway. And this thing that they do, what is it? Something Slava Ukraina. That was the Nazis, a Nazi call from the Banderites, that loved Adolf Hitler. So. Okay. Trump, I don't know. So some people say that Donald Trump, what it's like is Donald Trump takes the position of whoever he talked to last. And of course, the last meeting was with the European Union. You had Ursula von der Leyen and Rutte and Merz, and who knows? The snowman was there, I guess, snowman and all the seven dwarves were all there. The snowman and Yeah, and then I don't know. There's some kind of a what do they call it, communique or something that they signed, and it's something, of course, Russia will never fall for. And I saw a video with Alex Cristoforo, and as what has been going on all along. And Alex Cristoforo said, he has the same opinion on most things as I do. And of course, all it is an order for the capitulation of Russia. Like Russia lost. They think if they get a whole bunch of the leaders of different countries all together, and the leader of the European Commission, and the leader of or the Secretary General of NATO, that Russia can't mess with all of those big shots. So they basically demanding that Russia surrender, but they forget that Russia is a lot more powerful, and that Russia doesn't just go along with the crowd. So Russia has their goals, and of course, as most of you know, Russia entered the war that started. The war started in 2014, and Russia entered the war in 2022 when West Ukraine was just about to annihilate Donetsk city, and they were amassing on the border big time, and they had already killed over 13,000 innocent civilians, and it was a war going on anyway. And then there was militia. Only militia was actually supporting the people's lives and the country, and they declared their independence, and of course they rejected the Minsk Accords, which would have given them a autonomy, and Ukraine didn't want that. So, and besides that, in the Minsk Accords, it was like that all of the Donbass would stay part of Ukraine, but Ukraine, they wanted Crimea back. And normally what has been the case, and I haven't talked about this for quite some time, but I was in the military, as a lot of you know, and I talked to a lot of leaders, and oftentimes, but not so much. Even though I've met like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I've met one president of the United States, Ronald Reagan, and a lot of other people like that. And it's not like I had any conversations with them, but I did have conversations with other generals, and I heard a lot. And they're allowed to talk to me about this. And of course, one dream was back in those days was to kick Russia out of the Crimea and deprive Russia of a warm water port, so that in the wintertime, Russia would not, at least in their eyes, have a warm water port, to launch any shipping, and then Russia would cease to be an empire. That was the whole scenario back in the 1980s. And of course, as time went by and NATO kept expanding, and then the goal was kind of changing, when they wanted to take over Ukraine, and it was not to kick Russia out, but it was to take the Crimea, that the United States wanted the Crimea. And I believe a lot of this war that was thrust upon Russia actually was immediately going, after they would take over the Donbass, of course, it's undeniable that the next goal was to be attacking parts of Russia. And I think as far as the lease agreement that was, for Sevastopol, that was about run out anyway. And so it was for the United States to take the Crimea. That was what was going to happen. NATO, having a NATO base. The United States obviously wanted to take control of that. So it graduated from kicking Russia out to taking it completely. And I think a lot of the time Russia was going to move a lot of their naval assets, where they used to have naval assets to a small extent, what was in what is considered the port of Krasnodar, which is Novorossiysk. It's the city that's right nearby there, which is there's some strange phenomena in that city. What's one day a year, normally they have hurricane strength winds that sometimes can often blow roofs off of houses and things like that. And there's very few trees right around the city. I don't know if that's good for Navy or what, but that's just a weird thing. But that occurred to me, because it's a very strange winter. There's a name for that. It has a name, this wind, very famous, that it's like for one day of the year. And it's really, really severe, and you have to stay inside, and just for your information. But let's keep going here on that. one of the things that, when Russia was asked, well, what about these American sanctions? What when they put sanctions on Russia? Well, what is Russia going to do? And of course, Russia, they never jump the gun, and they never, they never say, oh, we're going to do this, like the United States and everybody else says. Russia says, well, we have to see what's going to happen, see what's on paper, see what these things are. And they said it could hurt relations with the United States, these warming relations that you see what's going on right now. And I think I know that one thing that Donald Trump is doing is he's trying to keep warm relations with Belarus, which, as you all know probably, I would assume you all know, that's not part of Russia, but it is part of the Union State. There is a joining of Russia and Belarus, and it's called the Union State. However, they're not the same country. As you all know, that Belarus does not participate in the special military operation. There was something that went on the first day or two, and I witnessed part of that, and I can maybe get into that. I was living near an airfield, and the planes were just going constantly, like 24/7. I've seen some other things. A lot of times I don't know what I can say. I don't really want to harm the government here or anything. As part as I've seen a few things. So, and you're not allowed to go. A foreigner's not allowed to go on a military base in Belarus. It's not similar like to the United States. You can go on in most cases. You have to sign in and things like that, but they don't have a law like that. But there is a law over here, and you can't, as a foreigner, you can't go. I didn't go on any military base. I'm not going to say that. As a matter of fact, I was even doing a blog, and it was outside, and it didn't say anything to do with any military base there. And I saw no soldiers or nothing. And it was across from a tourist hotel. And I walked on the street vlogging or something, and some soldier came up after me, and if I can remember right, I think I had to delete it, or I don't know. I don't know if I had to delete it. I think he just told me I'm not allowed. I can't film, so I couldn't do that. And normally you can film just about anywhere in Belarus. As a matter of fact, you can film a lot more in Belarus than you can in Germany or maybe even places in the States. I don't know about the States. It's a new phenomena that's going around vlogging and stuff, but you can't. I was even in a supermarket in Germany, and a whole bunch of people came around me, the staff, and said, you're not allowed to film, and you can film in any supermarket in Belarus, but, you can't film in a supermarket. What is that? Is that some very sensitive secrets or something like that? How much water costs or a bagel? I don't know, but maybe they're loaded, those bagels. So, yeah, very different. I think the world has actually flipped into a large extent. In a lot of ways, there's a lot more freedom over here. And as a matter of fact, the reason why I came here, some of you are new subscribers, I have to fill you in on that, is all of these there wasn't any of these COVID restrictions here. So there was no they maybe had this for a very, very short time, maybe for a month. I don't know, because they were kind of seeing how the rest of the world was acting, and they said, well, let's play it safe. And then, I don't know, maybe they realized that this whole thing was a big fake and a big hoax. Sure, there was a coronavirus. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of these actions and things that, Fauci and all of this, it's mostly probably to get everybody scared and to see how they can make everybody comply. Maybe it was a test run. You remember the real test run was this, what was it called? Project or Agenda 201 or something like that. And they were playing as if it was happening in Brazil. I think it's still online. You can see it on YouTube. Agenda, I think it was Agenda 201. And then they're doing, like, it was 2 months before COVID actually came out, and they were acting is what they would do and what would happen if a coronavirus were to break out. It's like, oh, just out of coincidence, 2 months later we had a coronavirus. I mean, that's magic if you ask me. I don't know. So, yes. But as far as relations with Belarus, the United States, why he's probably trying to keep warm relations, I guess, with Lukashenko is the U.S. and Belarus, they're making these deals on some sort of a deal where there's prisoner releases. And if you guys know, like, the United States had big operations here to overthrow the government. I mean, particularly the United States, more than anything, far more than, it's very similar to the Ukraine thing. And the United States, originally they wanted to overthrow Belarus before they overthrew Ukraine. Ukraine was, part two. but it didn't work here. And there was a few attempts, like especially to assassinate the president of Belarus. And one of the overthrows, it wasn't that long ago, it was 2020, and that was a real big one. That was a real big one. And they tried to assassinate him. I was even here at that time. It was in, I might get mixed up, is it 2022? If that was shortly after I came, it was on May 9th. And Russia intercepted a lot of this. They even recorded by audio these people that were planning. It was like a few of the military or retired military from Belarus, and they recorded them planning and how they were going to try to kill Lukashenko and his entire family. The leader here. So that was interesting, but it was snuffed out pretty early. But the other one in 2020, that was a big operation. And so some of these people were arrested, and they were in prison until recently. And Lukashenko and Donald Trump, I guess it was through maybe Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of Donald Trump. And part of it was to release 123 of these prisoners that were, trained probably. Some of them were trained by the United States, and they still have a lot of these things in different places. A lot of you are new subscribers. You don't know who I am. I was in Army Intelligence as well, Army Intelligence Battalion in the 8th Infantry Division. And so a lot of these things, they had these, and they have these still in other countries. They have these things that you go to and you watch American movies, and you can get some Levi's and stuff, and you watch American movies. They teach you better English. And what they're doing is they're teaching you how to protest and, how protests run and what you're supposed to do. Probably making some signs and things like that for the protests, how to run color revolutions. And so they had some of that here in Belarus, apparently as well, very secretive. And I think they still have them. I know there was an attempt not too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, and that was in Kazakhstan. But they have them in some of the other stands, I'm positive. And look at Serbia, the stuff that's going on. I mean, Georgia, I don't know if they got rid of them yet. Lukashenko was able to get rid of a lot of these people. The security service here in Belarus is called the KGB, believe it or not. And, they're decent people. I've met some of them, of course, and it's like they're just regular security. It's not like like back in the Cold War days. It's just that they didn't change the name, and maybe it was a good idea. Just leave the same name, and everybody will, kind of stay back a little bit, Unless you listen to Juliet, what does she tell Romeo? What's in a name? Why don't they call it flower children or something like that? I don't know, but maybe people would not really take them that seriously if they did. So, but in exchange for those 123 prisoners recently, what Belarus was supposed to get out of it is a release of sanctions on the potash, which is a fertilizer. That's one of the 3 macro ingredients in a fertilizer. You have the NPK, nitrogen is N, P is potassium, K is potash, potassium. I get potassium and phosphate. No, phosphate is the P, and the K is potassium. Here I was a farmer. I was a coffee farmer too. But that's the macro ingredients anyway. And Belarus has the potash. Russia has actually all of the other ones. And some places, even Venezuela. And one of the things that was recent, that Venezuela sent some tankers out. And Ellen, oh gosh, hang on just a second. Well, I'm back. When you have somebody staying with you that has a problem with cognitive decline and things, they forget things. You say, well, I'm making this video and it takes a little bit of an hour or so long, and then they start pounding on the door or calling, and they expect you to run over there, and they just forget. Bad enough having a cat, it's going to probably come up here and bother me in a little bit here, but that's okay. Okay, but anyway, about these 123 prisoners, yes, a lot of them, there's a lot of, and a lot of this stuff comes from the West. And I'll say this again, like I said, for the benefit of a lot of new people that might be watching now, is over here we had this agency that Elon Musk called, I guess he called him like a criminal agency, which was USAID, as you all know. And USAID is part of the funding, of course, George Soros, and you have Radio Free Europe, and you have Voice of America. And a lot of these people are all involved in, doing overthrows of governments and sabotage operations and all that. And Belarus was a really, really big one. They really wanted Belarus very badly. So, and the fact that they didn't do it, it's at least a lot of foreigners and at least half of the population here, at least, they're amazed that Alexander Lukashenko was able to thwart these people's trying to overthrow the government. And Victoria Nuland, of course, she says before she left her position there as assistant secretary of state or whatever, at least in one policy area, and she said that at that time that they're going to continue trying to overthrow. Well, she said, we're going to continue trying to enact regime change in Belarus. And, there's quite a few people involved in that, and it's maybe some kind of a bee in their bonnet, like to try to conquer Russia. There are reasons for Russia, but it was always a stepping stone, get Belarus as a stepping stone to get Russia. So that's, for a lot of you that don't really know, or maybe you're not that familiar with Belarus. So, but it's, I don't know, amazing. Most foreigner people, if you believe it or not, most people that are foreigners here, they support the government because they've, as a lot of us, you come from a lot of Western countries, or say even Africa or a lot of different places, and then you come to Belarus and you see that how things are, they just run. You don't have drug addicts in the street. You don't have garbage all over the place. And the crime is practically nothing. Corruption, you don't really ever hear of it, and it's like. And then the people are complaining, and you're just like, well, what the heck are they complaining about? There's capitalists here and things like that as well. It's in all societies, if you all know, or all economies. If you look at any country in the world, there is no such thing as a communist country or a capitalist country or socialist country. All of them are hybrids. They're hybrids of different elements. There's a huge amount of socialism in the United States. So, you got to think about that. And look at the Chinese... or just say China. China is a communist country. Well, I guess they're better capitalists than the capitalist countries. They're making a lot of good money and a lot of rich people there. So, as I'm trying to say, they're all hybrids. Even look at say Germany or a lot of Europe involved. They call that what is it called? Socialist services. So it's not socialism. It's not communism. It's not capitalism. They call it's a socialist services economy. Anyway, so it's almost like if you don't think that you know anything like this, what is this and what is that, don't even worry about it because you're probably confused, and rightly so. It's almost like, well, what's a liberal? What was a liberal 20, 30 years ago compared to a liberal now? Completely different. Who's right and who's left? John F. Kennedy was a Democrat, and everybody said now with his view, John F. Kennedy's view, if he was alive now, he would be a Republican. And even, like say, somebody you get to be very young like me, like I'm, a very young guy, and you remember back in those days, and it's like everything is much different. What was one thing one time is completely like what is left then is right now, and there was a whole different picture of what a leftist was. And normally a leftist was somebody who liked socialism and was anti-war. And I don't even know anymore what is a leftist and what is a rightist because you get a little bit confused. And then look at, say, somebody like Jackson Hinkle. I talked a lot about him yesterday. And Jackson Hinkle, for almost everything, he has very good views on most everything. He seems to be a very rational, well-spoken. He's actually probably, you can look at him as one of the future leaders of the United States. There's almost no doubt about that. And some people are looking at like this Nick Fuentes, and I'm thinking, well, he goes into near meltdowns and he says women should shut the F up and black people should mostly be arrested and what the Jews run society. Well, he's pretty right on that. But a lot of these other things, he comes up with some crazy stuff. In my opinion, I don't know. And sometimes he completely contradicts himself. And Jackson Hinkle, it's like when you watch Jackson, oh gosh, sanity returns, So, but anyway, he's a communist, he said. And I'm thinking, I was probably indoctrinated, and maybe a lot of you were as well, as to what is a communist back in the old days. I don't even know anymore. So, Anyway, so let's keep going. What else is going on? I'm talking about that. Okay, some of these people, let's see, I'll talk about that. Some of these people, there's 123 people. A lot of them went to the United States, probably already there. And some decided they wanted to go to Ukraine, to join the military and fight against the bad Russians, their own brothers. The Belarusians and the Russians and Ukrainians are obviously brothers. They're Eastern Slavs. And you start to see how effective this was with this Voice of America and this Radio Free Europe, how they were able to indoctrinate and brainwash so many people, basically to hate your own country. And not only that, to hate the Russians if you're a Belarusian, or, of course this didn't really work very well in Russia. They did this in Russia as well, but Russia was able to at least change the mind of most of these people. They don't really have that many dissidents. Most people in Russia are very patriotic. And of course, they were working much harder to turn the people in Belarus. And of course, it was most effective in the cities, because that's where they concentrated, was in the larger cities, such as Minsk itself. And they infiltrated into the schools, and that's normally where you do it. You try to corrupt the youth. Sounds like Socrates. You remember that's why they made Socrates drink the hemlock. They said he's corrupting our youth. And, I wasn't around in those days. I looked old, but I'm not that old. So I don't know what the heck the deal was with Socrates. But, in modern times, if you worked around people like this, and it's absolutely incredible. And a lot of these people that are working in a lot of these services, they are completely brainwashed themselves. It's absolutely amazing. So you see some people, for example, that are CIA, and I've met a few of them at least, and I wasn't supposed to know that they are, but they have some sort of indoctrination too. I'm not saying all of them, obviously not. There's a lot of very good ones, but some of them, I'd like to talk to people like Ray McGovern and Larry Johnson, and there's quite a few, and talk to them and to get their opinion about this. It's absolutely incredible. I was never a part of these people, but I just have known some of them. And I was dealing oftentimes, like I said, with a lot of VIPs and things. And, you have to get, some weapons training and anti-terrorism classes and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of these people that eventually were going to be, that I, met, and some of them eventually going to be like Secret Service for the President of the United States and all that. And these people are like incredibly unfriendly. And it's like, make sure you don't make any friends or be friendly to anybody. And it's like really strange. They're very, but those are Secret Service types of people. It's not really the spooks. The spooks are a little bit different. So, you get involved with a lot of different types of people, and they all maybe are told to act or comply with, I guess, maybe their decor or something. That's how they're supposed to be, unfriendly or something like that. Yeah, well, let's see. But to these people, a lot of them here, and I hate to, I don't really like to send out any information, that would let any authorities that might be watching this know, like, who these people are or suspect who these people are. But I'll just say that some, maybe in around about my age, even in my age, a lot of people were brainwashed. And they brainwashed them here, which is absolutely incredible, and it actually corroborates with what happens in Ukraine. They're brainwashed into believing an alternate vision of history, an alternate version. That Russia's been the bad guy all the time. And if you even go to Moldova, you'll see Mia Sandow, the leader of Moldova, said that the Nazis were the liberators. The bad guys were the Soviets that defeated the Nazis, and the good guys, the liberators, were the Nazis. And she's the one leading the country of Moldova. And of course, they make damn sure that she stays there, and they cheated big time on the election. If you guys, if you watch my videos, I've talked about that already in the past, and other people talk about it as well. And, they tried to overthrow these elections in Georgia, massive amounts of time. Slovakia, they're really working hard on that. They're going to really try again in Hungary. They're trying to get rid of Orban. Serbia is another really big one. They're trying to really overthrow that government. And it looks like something happened in the Czech Republic because they sort of lost that one. Now there's a rational thinking person that's the leader of the Czech Republic. So we'll see how that one goes. Maybe you'll get in some freak car accident or something. Boy. But for these 123 people, this is a very strange thing. So like I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that are actually for this opposition that want to overthrow the government here. And so apparently some of these people, they have contact with each other, I'm believing, because I'm not sure exactly how this did happen, but there was like a collection taken up for these 123 people, the ones that went to the US and maybe even Ukraine, and they raised, believe this or not, $2 million US. Now it's very possible most of it could have come from 2 or 3 different donors, and other people just put in $20 or something here and there. I don't know. So I can't tell. I don't know. They're probably not going to give me the figures on how many people actually donated. So that would be interesting to find out. So $2 million, I mean, you can float a little bit of that over to me, I guess. Wow. So, makes you wonder if those people got the 2 million or those that were running the vote. As you know how it works in the European Union, they'd get money for Ukraine, and of course the European Union people, they got to take their cut too, They get a big cut, so somebody probably took a cut here. That's how these people operate over there, I mean on the other side of reality. Yeah. Yes, okay. And this thing, like I talked about in Venezuela, let's see if I had anything more. I was thinking that originally, Venezuela kicked them out, but I guess a lot of them, it was just because they refused to go along with what Hugo Chavez came up with that time. So they left the country and refused. And if they refuse it, they can't operate. So they left. And obviously the assets were taken from them, from like Exxon. I guess it was maybe just Exxon and Chevron. Chevron stayed. Chevron still makes money in Venezuela. So Donald Trump is telling you, that this big blockade of these oil tankers, and but it's like all of those that are connected to the state petroleum company with PSDV, I can't remember even the initials on that. Those are supposedly blocked, but Chevron is allowed to come and go as they please. But apparently some of these tanks, I think it was 7, they said 7 left that were not from Chevron. And they did have petroleum products on there. Like I said, urea was it's actually the nitrogen for fertilizer. And I guess they produce that also in Venezuela. A lot of it comes, I guess, from Dominican Republic in the Caribbean, for urea. And most of the potassium comes, for a lot of fertilizers in the world is Morocco. It comes from Morocco. And, but like these other things, but Russia produces urea, potash, and potassium. So they have all of those. I mean, phosphate. I get them mixed up. Potassium and phosphate. They both start with a P. So anyway, so I hope I'm not making any mistakes and telling you the wrong one, but I guess it's not important to you unless you're a farmer and plan on buying some of its stuff anyway. But anyway, a lot of those are possibly getting out. They were under military escort by the Venezuelan military. So let's see if they make it out and they make it to their destinations or not, or if the United States, what are they going to do? Shoot them like they do with all these fishermen, And a lot of them are fishermen. Let's face it. Max Blumenthal, who's very, very, very well informed, especially on Venezuela. So if you want to catch real detailed information, find something with Max Blumenthal. But there's a few things I know that he doesn't know because I live down there, and you're living right there, and you see stuff with your own eyes. But a lot of these fishermen, it's not like they are smuggling, but they're not smuggling drugs necessarily. They're smuggling, a lot of them, they smuggle diesel fuel. Surprise. Nobody said that to you, have they? I mean, for a lot of you new subscribers, I've been saying it, because what happens is that, a lot of these countries, they have high taxes on some fuels, such as diesel fuel. So these fishermen, instead of fishing, they make more money when they get the cheap diesel fuel, which is very cheap, from Venezuela, and they send it, and they take on these boats, and you see even a lot of these pictures of these boats that Donald Trump blows up. They have a lot of these like tanks in there, and what those tanks they have diesel fuel in there, and then diesel fuel doesn't really burn that well. If you ever try to light it with a match, it's not gasoline. Gasoline now, bye. But diesel fuel is not really that flammable. It's a weird thing, but anyway, it still burns, and they hit these things, and that's what they're hitting. These guys are smuggling diesel fuel to hotels and things. And I was even stayed on hotels, and they were getting diesel fuel from Venezuela, Venezuelan fishermen, by the way. Yes. And one time what did happen, sometimes they're smuggling very small amounts, like some person that works at the resort, maybe a manager or something, and but somebody did have some cocaine, and the customs busted them on the docks on Union Island, which is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You can look it up on the map. It's very close to Venezuela. But anyway, so these boats come, and a boat came, and of course they were bringing diesel fuel because they didn't have any fish, and they never have any fish. They have diesel fuel. So they came, and apparently the customs people were checking some people out, and then one guy threw some white powder or something overboard, and they sent a diver out, probably tied a rock onto it or had a stone in there, and then whatever, to get it before the customs people saw it. And they sent a diver in to get it, and it turns out that, well, you know what it was, but as far as the official report that came, because the leader of the country of St. Vincent and the Grenadines was good friends. He just got voted out of office just some weeks ago. He had been there like 25 years or whatever. But anyway, he was good friends, and Venezuela did an awful lot for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a lot. So he's not going to say it's cocaine and have set up some big international problem or whatever. So they came up in what was written in the papers and all over, and a lot of people were really getting a big laugh out of it, that it was laundry powder. So he was smuggling a bag of laundry powder, I mean, I think he had it, it was a big bag in a pocket or something, and threw it overboard. And it was laundry powder. I mean, you can get pretty high on laundry powder. Trust me on that one. I mean, you won't live to tell about it maybe when you sniff that stuff, but pretty dangerous stuff. So we got to protect the youth, I guess. So anyway, like I said, when you live and experience certain things, you can, it's just like this person that wrote to me about this what I told you a little bit earlier about this thing with Exxon and Chevron. Chevron decided to stay, and Exxon said, take the little finger, we're not going to do that. We're not going to comply to that. Turn over part of our massive profits. We're raping your country of your oil. We're going to keep it all, and pay this tiny little bit of a lease fee for the land. And, and then of course in comes Donald Trump, but of course few years too late. Yes. By the way, about Chevron, now there was something announced, and this is really incredible. And, we like to talk about what's going on in Israel and the Zionists and all that. I have to try to keep saying Zionists. I don't like to say Jews because I don't like to blame Jews. Like I just mentioned, Max Blumenthal, fantastic person, Norman Finkelstein, and many others. But a lot of them I don't even know that they're Jewish. But I never really bothered to write it down on a piece of paper to find out, oh yeah, that's a Jew. So I have to like them and not like those. But I think it was another one. This Rob Reiner got killed by his son. He was Jewish too, and I don't know. That sounds like it was some terrible. Anyway, it's terrible, no matter what. Donald Trump seemed to have hated Rob Reiner, and I don't know. I'm not going to. It's not part of any real geopolitical news anyway. What are you doing up here, dummy? So you want to say hi? Look at that. Look at all those people out there. They're probably going to put you on YouTube. Look at that. You don't even see, do you? I knew you'd come and visit. How about going over here? So now where was I? Anyway, whatever I was talking about, forget about it. It's his fault. He interrupted me there. Let's see. Yeah. think I went through. Oh no, I was telling you about that is very important. That Chevron has now closed some sort of a deal with Israel. And if you guys are not really familiar, I remember some years ago, and it's not announced now, but they had discovered a large natural gas find off the coast of Gaza. Start connecting some of the dots here. And Israel started attacking the fishing boats, the Gazan fishing boats, and getting them out of there. And then, of course, there's an introduction of the slant oil drilling. Remember what happened back in the days of Iraq and Iran and Kuwait and all that sort of, well, not Iran, Iraq and Kuwait. And what happened then, and what's actually sparked, a major reason for sparking that war, is that Kuwait was putting oil wells on the border of Iraq, and that's right after the invention of slant oil drilling. And that was Iraq's biggest oil field. So Kuwait was sucking all the oil out of Iraq, and making billions of dollars from it. And even that general who was in charge, Schwarzkopf, he was actually there on the ground, even at that time, long before the war started. And he was even overseeing this big theft of oil from Iraq. A lot of people maybe didn't know, or if you forgot about that, but that was a major reason, maybe the major reason for the start of this war. And it was all provocations, obviously, against Iraq. And they were stealing, United States was stealing the oil like nobody's believed. But anyway, it's a slant drilling or piping or whatever. Also, apparently, what was going on, they're having a lot of these things right off the waters of Gaza, but still in Israel. And then it's going into Gaza and sucking out all the natural gas. So make sure the Palestinians never can profit from it. Anyway, you probably also don't know that, as you know now, that Israel is coming to it's like getting an inheritance and finding out that your uncle is maybe the richest man in the country or something. And now that they have the Golan Heights, there are parts in the Golan Heights that are some of the richest mineral reserves on the planet. And a lot of this is actually difficult to get through. And that was a major reason for the Syrian war, is because first Israel takes the Golan Heights, and then there was a demand that Syria allows them to pipe the oil through Syria that they steal from the stolen Golan Heights and in the direction of Turkey, and then into Europe. And of course, that would sidetrack Russia's money that they were getting, because they had the Nord Stream 1 at that time, and that would diminish the value of that. And so that was going to be another gas supply. And of course, but anyway, it was stolen. It was, the stolen Golan Heights from Syria, and then stealing their natural gas. Besides that, then the main company at that time was a company, and I think it's called Genie Petroleum, starts with a G, G-E-N-I-E, Genie Petroleum. And they were doing most of it. And that's who sat on the board of the directors of Genie Petroleum, the director at that time. And of course, he died a couple of years ago, was Dick Cheney, was the former vice president of the United States. So, a lot of this stuff just keeps going on. And all of these little facts and things, and you can tie a lot of this stuff together. And like I just said, Chevron, they're now involved with this thing going on they're the ones that are, and that was just announced. Bibi Netanyahu, if I was a little bit more tech savvy and wanted to spend the time, I could put up the clip for you of him saying, oh yeah, we made this great deal. And of course, and then he even says, oh, we had to get a few things out of the way first, which of course was this invasion of Gaza and taking over the Philadelphia corridor. It's that little area between Egypt and Gaza. And now Israel is in complete control of that. And the deal is, of course, with Egypt. So a lot of this stuff is going to get piped into Egypt. But that is mostly this gas off of that area. And probably there's no problem right now is piping a lot of these minerals. And I think it's a huge natural gas field from the Golan Heights to Turkey. So a lot of people are going to be making a lot of money, and Turkey is turning into a massive, massive petroleum product hub. As you know, you have the Turk Stream, which is coming from Russia, and Ukraine has tried to bomb that on many occasions, which is, in the Black Sea, and they tried to bomb that. Anything that comes out of Russia and it makes any money at all for Russia. So they're, what a messed up world in all of this. Everybody's competing, with hostilities against another person. Incredible. But anyway, you got to keep your eyes on what's going to be going on there with Chevron and Israel, because that is a tie there. I wonder if Genie Petroleum is also involved in that. You should look these things up if you guys don't believe me, and find out for yourself. But to find the real facts and things, you got to dig a lot deeper and find out what the stuff is that really is going on and what went on in those days. Okay. So Chevron is going to be involved in that one. I was going to mention something about this. It's like a psychological operation that these West European people, I guess, I don't know, and the UK, they're like psyoping their own people, like a psychological operation, into believing that Russia is going to attack. I mean, I don't know. Over here, and at least the people, and maybe on the sites and things that I look at, and if you're looking at like George Galloway and I tell you what, commendation for the people over there in the West, because they don't really get a lot of this news from over here. And in Belarus, there's a big advantage of being in Belarus over Russia, because if you go to Russia, you don't get a lot of this news, because, as you all know, that the West, the Europeans, they blocked like RT and Sputnik and all that. And in exchange for that and reciprocity, Russia has blocked a lot of things that come from the West that go into Russia. But in Belarus, everything comes in. So you get all of the West news, and you get all of the news from Russia. And if you're good in your Chinese, or you got a good translator, you can get the Chinese news. You get everything here. Not much of anything is ever blocked. So actually, you get the best of all worlds. That's one advantage you get in Belarus that you don't get in most, well, I wouldn't say most, in a lot of other countries. So that's a good thing. Yeah, but we have an evil leader who's this and that, and I don't know. It's incredible. I don't know. I talk a lot about that here. I don't like to go overboard and start telling you guys that a lot of other people do that. There's less people that are broadcasting now from Belarus, because there's this problem now with Google, as well as a problem here. We have some jamming devices here because of drones. There has been some drone attacks on Minsk as well here. I mean, not here where I'm at, or not in this area too. It actually is in the southeastern part of Minsk, and I'm in the southeastern part, and but it's a little bit further out. There was some. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was that place or if there's another one that is actually more south. But there was some drone attacks from Ukraine there, and I shouldn't even mention or talk about that. But anyway, there's some devices here, and it's a little bit of jamming. It makes it a little bit harder to upload videos. And not only that, Google has problems with Russia, and obviously, since we're in the Union state, it spills over into Belarus. So, problems as well here, and it doesn't go so smoothly as well. So this video that I'm doing right now it's probably, I'll go to bed and wake up, and it maybe still won't be uploaded onto YouTube. Well, we'll see. But I was talking about the psyoping, how they do that to their own people over there in the West and all that, and they're trying to make everybody scared. And you see how all this censorship, and people like in the UK, if you go to the wrong site and read the wrong messages, they might come and take you down for questioning. They might even arrest you. Maybe if they don't like how you answered the questions. I have no idea. And especially when you post something that they don't like online. I think Ursula von der Leyen was trying to say, oh, that's how it is in Russia. I don't live in Russia, so I'm not really sure. I don't know. I say some things, but I don't have anything bad to say against the government. And I think maybe even Lukashenko kind of realizes that he doesn't do anything bad against the people that I have seen, and any rational people. I don't think anybody's ever said that. It's like there are certain things that you leave for the government, and there are freedoms that you have, and it's not very difficult. And maybe when people think that they should get more than other people, and they should have more privileges than everybody else has, and maybe they start to, push the limits a little bit, maybe they get in trouble, and then they don't like the government because the government stops them. Very conceivable, as you all know. But, I mean, you should be able to just go out and murder people. Go stab people when you don't like them, right? Jeez. Maybe I shouldn't use sarcasm. I'm kind of wondering if YouTube is going to take it as being serious. I don't know. But a lot of these people, and what they're doing is they're conditioning people in the Europe and the UK, trying to get everybody ready to, go get a gun and, get a uniform and go fight the Russians. And you can take over as cannon fodder for the Ukrainians when they just get sent out there to get slaughtered by Russian artillery. And, but the deal is, if those people start a war, it's not like Russia is going to put on the kid gloves when it comes to those people. They see Ukrainians and Belarusians, if there would be a war in Belarus or whatever somehow, but they see them as their own people, their brothers and their sisters, because they're all Eastern Slavs. And I think even a lot of Slavic peoples, they don't really, but I'll tell you what, if you get the Germans who have already tried it a couple times to, and back in those old days, with the Ukrainian Nazis and the German Nazis, and they had some. I don't think the Finnish Nazis were here, but maybe some of the Baltic Nazis, were active, and they massacred a lot of people in Belarus. 1/3 of the population and more was actually massacred in Belarus, and piles of bodies. And that's not some cholera or stuff that was a real thing. What was going on in Germany? This was a much worse thing. Wiping out villages, over 200 villages, they massacred everybody. It is a genocide, and there's books about the genocide in Belarus. But anyway, if the Western Europeans are going to try to come here and reenact the same thing, and a lot of them have shown that they want to, it's not going to go very well. It's not going to go as well as it has been going for Ukraine. It's going to be a lot worse than that. They should realize that. So. But anyway, they were hoping for the war to start in 2029. As you guys all know, that's what Europe keeps saying, that Russia's going to start the war, and they're going to try to provoke Russia to starting a war in 2009. They just have to keep provoking, and then. But it looks like they're trying to get it going a lot earlier than that, when they're not even ready. It's incredible. Russia has got a lot of momentum right now. They're manufacturing weapons. People are trained in making these weapons, and a lot of soldiers are trained in actual combat. And then these jokers over there, they've spent a lot of special forces. There are a lot of French special forces that died in Ukraine, that they sent them there. And we're not supposed to be talking about there. In the early on, the United States had an awful lot of soldiers there. And there's still some soldiers of the United States, operating in Ukraine, who's shooting off the HIMARS and things like that. A lot of British special ops and things like that. A lot of them are all centered in Odessa. I think even Colonel McGregor will tell you that. So a lot of these people are in Odessa, mostly the British and things. And but those in the West, they're rapidly weaponizing and but these Europeans they maybe want to be doing this because they know that that's a good way for them to fix their golden parachutes. By the way, did you hear about Nancy Pelosi? Turns out she is one of the greatest investors in our lifetime. She outdid, hang on a second. Back again, that time it was cat. Wasn't a cognitive person, it was a cat. Cognitive cat? But no, Nancy Pelosi. They looked at her, and I guess it was beginning in 2014, she started to, as an investor, obviously, you insider trading, but she started doing better than Warren Buffett, as well as the general S&P 500. And she started really, as the time went by, better and better. And there was no dips in the curve, like something comes up, like maybe COVID or whatever like that, and the big dip in the curve. Hers is like straight up, going up. It's pretty good when you can when you can be the one, especially the key person enacting policy is where the money goes. The Congress, that is their job. That's the role of the House of Representatives, which she was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and she knew exactly where legislation was going to go. And when you know all that, pretty, easy to tell, where investment money is going to be going to, or where it should be going to, that's better said. So one of them, of course, is computer chips, and she's the one that actually was first instrumental in what they're doing is they're transferring some of the most advanced computer chip technology from Taiwan, which is the more advanced computer chips, some of the most advanced, and they're transferring a lot of this to Arizona. And I think Donald Trump is even trying to claim that he's the one that did it, but it was Nancy Pelosi. And of course, Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Paul, are heavily invested in that. But anyway, it's like, but if you see the curve, she shot way above Warren Buffett, way above the S&P 500. And it is, in our lifetime, Nancy Pelosi is the most successful investor by far, twice as good and more than Warren Buffett himself. I wonder how that happened, And remember, she made her trip to China, and China kept warning, don't do it, don't you do it, blah, blah, that's a provocation. She went there anyway. Well, the main reason why she went there is to meet with her compatriots as far as working out this deal for the computer chip company. Because she certainly went there. They even have photos of her going to this factory. But she just happened to have been in Taiwan, so she just brought in there. But anyway, as you know, she's retiring. If she's not already retired, I don't know. It's a lot of hard work getting all those facelifts and things. And, I don't know if she's got real hair. But anyhow, she has got one heck of a golden parachute. I don't even know if anybody knows how much money that lady has. I don't know. Maybe her and Zelensky can hold hands and tiptoe off into the sunset together with golden parachutes, maybe golden umbrellas. I don't know. Wow. So I think they said something like, as far as points are concerned, Buffett has 400. They did it in 2024. Buffett 400 points to Pelosi's 934, more than twice as much. Wow. Yes. So, like I said, UK, they're trying to get this war going. They have the highest ranking military guy, this chief of defense, I guess is what they call it, saying that you already heard this probably from a lot of people. That's been out for a couple of days. Get their sons and daughters have to be ready to be sacrificed in a war against Russia. Oh, they're all doing this stuff. Norway and Sweden and Finland and all this stuff. These people are, I don't know. I don't understand. I mean, I don't even like talking about it or even thinking about these bunch of friggin' idiots. I don't know. And the MI6, the MI6, I don't know. What is she? She got some really bad ties in her background, and I don't know if maybe she was influenced by her parents, which I guess were really crazy knuckleheads as well. I have no idea. And so she proclaimed a shadow war against Russia. The new leader of the MI6, I guess she declared a shadow war against Russia. And Ursula von der Leyen, she's pledged to escalate the hybrid war on Russia. So it's really a lot of terminology. So I don't know. These guys are already doing this stuff, and they have been doing this for a long time. And I just keep watching. I don't know if these statements mean anything. So just keep watching. They're doing the same thing they've been doing for a long time. Okay, everybody. Anyway, the video's already a little bit too long, and who knows what's going to happen now, the next cognitive thing or a cat or something like that. I don't know. So I better lay off now. It's late, and it's probably going to take a long time to upload this thing. Sorry about that. I'm more sorry than you are, trust me. Okay. And again, whoever posted my video and got a lot of views and some new subscribers and things, thank you very much for that. And let's hope that this stuff is going to quiet down and end pretty soon, and hope this stuff, especially in this threat on Venezuela, for the United States' sake, just as much as it is for Venezuela. So once again, thanks everybody. I'll see you on the next time. Bye-bye.